Hello everyone and welcome to the Grumpy Surfer podcast. I'm your host, Adz and. On the podcast today, I have a Royal Marines Commando veteran who has served in Northern Ireland, Iraq and Afghanistan. He is also one of a handful of people to row the Atlantic Ocean as a team and more impressively, on his own. After losing his right leg below the knee whilst helping at a scene of an accident on the M3 motorway, he believed that he had lost all purpose in life, but through courage and cheerfulness under the face of adversity, overcame all of his physical and mental demons. Please enjoy part 1 of my conversation with a truly inspirational character, a voice that would melt butter, Lee Spencer. Lee Spencer, welcome to the Grumpy Surfer podcast. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks for having me.
What have you been up to?
Well, same as everybody else. Everything's up in the air. I've spent the summer building stuff in my garden. I'm building a bar at the moment, which is a far cry from where I wanted to be, and that was kayaking the length of the Amazon. So that's been postponed to next year. And realistically, I think next year's a bit optimistic, so it might be the year after.
Yeah. What made you want to kayak the length of the Amazon?
Someone asked me.
Oh, really? Easy as that?
Why would you not want to do that? Yeah. So when first time I rowed across the Atlantic with a team of 4, there was 2 guys, an Aussie and another lad called Theo. And the first night rowing, they rowed past us, right next to us. And we didn't see them till right at the very, very end, and we beat them in. And so we was kind of racing each other quite, especially towards the end of the row, and became quite good friends with them. And Theo come up with the idea of kayaking the length of the Amazon to coincide with the 100-year anniversary of the Not Forgotten Association.
Okay.
So that's the idea behind it, and he asked me if I'd like to get involved. No, it was bit his arm off.
Was it in single man kayaks, double man?
Yeah, single man kayaks. There's 10 kayakers, 2 or 3 support crew. Obviously things have changed. And out of the, I think there's 3 bootnecks, myself, Vinnie Manley and Lee Waters, and a Cal who skippered my first row. And he's obviously a very, very close friend now.
I was going to say, you can't really call women cows these days, can you? That's okay.
Yeah, cow as in the rubbish vegetable.
Oh, right.
Cal
okay,
Royce.
Yeah.
That's his name. Yeah, so Cal and me, he skippered our first row. And we rowed 2 on, 2 off together every day for 47 days across the Atlantic. And I didn't once put headphones in, didn't once drift off. We just chatted and laughed the whole way across, and we didn't have one crossword, which is quite very, very unusual in ocean rowing, which is can be quite a stressful situation.
Yeah, I can imagine. Have you got lots of support crew and stuff that are going to be coming along with that, or is it kind of you're just going to carry all your stuff with you and you do stopovers?
We've got a thing called a pecky boat being built. It might be built already, which is the traditional local powered boat, which the support crew will be on. We'll take rations. We've got rations supplied by Expedition Foods, which is the same kind of rations that we took across. It's basically Norway rations, freeze-dried food, high energy. That's what I took across on both ocean rows. But we'll also be buying stuff as we're going down. There's lots of habitation all the way down where we're going from, which will be from Peru out to Manaus on the Atlantic coast.
Oh, nice. You've been doing, well, ever since you've kind of had your accident, you've been doing lots and lots of work with the charities, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, it all started with a dog in Afghanistan, believe it or not. Same as most servicemen who, don't have a need for the charity. It's not on your radar. And, you know, it's only when everything goes wrong that all of a sudden the charities, you know, mean something to you. But I'd not really thought of doing anything for any charity, really. And I certainly would not have thought of myself as actually being able to do anything. And it's probably something we'll talk about later, but I never looked upon myself as a particularly fit bootneck, and I mean fit as a bootneck. I've always struggled, not struggled, but I've always worked really hard to maintain basic fighting company fizz, and it's never come naturally to me. You know, you get guys who'll just go out and drink and smoke, and then they'll go out and run 6-minute miles. I'm the opposite end of that spectrum. I have to graft and work hard to maintain basic fighting company fitness. And so I've never considered myself as someone who would do things for charities. I didn't think I'd be able to. But it was, I found a puppy in Lashkar. Just, it was stuck behind some wires, and your natural human reaction is to just reach out and grab the puppy. And I was actually on an operation, very minor, low level one, but on every operation that we do, you got someone monitoring the net, like the radio, in case something goes wrong. And like they could hear us talking about this dog. And then when I came back into the camp at Lashkar, the whole detachment turned up, and we were like, wow, we've got a dog, brilliant. And I got lumbered looking after it. And I sent an email out to friends and family saying, look, I've got a dog, can you send me some worming tablets, flea tablets, and everything that you need? And I'd never had so many parcels, you know. People, you know, like parcels when you're out on ops, they're your lifeblood of morale, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
And I hardly got anything from my family or friends, but as soon as you show them a picture of a puppy, I was inundated. And amongst all the things that I got an email from my cousin Matthew, who told me about he'd seen Crufts on the telly, and former bootneck Pen Farthing started a charity called Adz and Dogs that was bringing dogs back and cats that kind of get adopted by the lads out there. So he put me in touch with Pen, and I put my then puppy in a taxi in Lashkar. She got a taxi from Lashkar to Kandahar, and then via Kabul, Islamabad, and then back to what's it called, Axminster, just off the 303 where she was in kennels. So we used to go and see her. And then basically that's just picking that puppy up, a weird small little action that actually changed my whole life. Because when I got back, I said so it obviously cost a lot of money, and I was like, you know, what can I do to help? And he said, try and raise some money. So first thing I'd done was a sportive on my bike. It was the Exmoor Beast, again, organised by Marcus DiVincenzo, I think his name is, former bootneck PTI.
Yeah. And
really enjoyed it. Never done anything, or never thought about entering anything like that. It's never been on my radar, but I really enjoyed it. And then I kind of, I felt a bit guilty asking people to donate money, their hard-earned money, to an animal charity when there's, you know, like you've got kids with cancer, and you've got the Royal Marines charity, there's military charities, the Poppy Appeal, all the... But I got a cheque from a guy that I served with for years, Aussie, ML, called Oz Palmer. And I sort of wrote him back and says, mate, thanks so much for that. And he said, no, anything for the lads. I'm mega up for that. And I'd never really considered the charity for the lads. But, you know, Penn wasn't bringing the dogs back for the dog's sake, although it's obviously a big part of it. But he was doing it because the lads formed that bond with them, and it was really to help the lads. So I then decided, I thought, well, I'm going to do another one. Because I enjoyed the sportive and badgering people for money. I quite enjoyed doing that. I ran a marathon over the moor on Christmas Eve, And I ran from Oakhampton camp to where I live, where we're recording this in Horrobridge, to my local pub is exactly 26 miles all cross country. And I've always wanted to run a marathon. So I've done that. And it just so happened to coincide with one of the heaviest dumps of snow we'd ever had up on the moor over Christmas. So, coming across the top, I was wading through quite deep snow. And the halfway point's about Postbridge in the middle of the moor. And I was running from Oakhampton camp to Postbridge in training in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And that was taking it quite easy. And it took me 7 hours on the day to get through all the snow. And I cracked on from there. But I got the bug. And then 6 months before I lost my leg, there's where we live now, where I am now, it's the former Married Quarters for 4-2. So there's lots of old bootnecks who live in the village and around. And there was a lad called Dom Lovett, who he's a lad in, well, I can't remember when it was. He dived into a snowdrift in Norway, obviously drunk. But he broke his neck and he was a virtual paraplegic. So he had very little movement in his arms, but essentially paralysed from the neck down. And there's the leading robotics specialist in the world just happens to be in Plymouth University. And they were trying to get a robotic exoskeleton to turn Dom's little movement and control that he did have in his arms, to try and get a little bit more control over that, to give him a little bit more independence. And there's a group of guys in the village got together and said, well, is there something we can do? And I'd already run a marathon, so I couldn't do that. I had to do something more, bigger. And Eddie Izzard had just run 47 marathons in 47 days, so I couldn't do 2 marathons on 2 separate days. So the only alternative was to run 2 marathons. So I ran from the pub to Oakhampton Battle Camp and then ran back. And so I'd done a few other things as well for the Royal Marines charity. So my association with the charity, the Royal Marines charity, and doing stuff for the Royal Marines charity was well established. It was part of my life, and I really had the bug before I lost my leg. So when I lost my leg, it just seemed a natural next step was to continue that. So I set myself laying in hospital bed. I set myself a goal of raising 10,000 for the Royal Marines charity in the first year of being, an amputee. And then it kind of led on to other things. And, you push through one door and they tend to lead to a corridor with lots of other doors. And then you push through into another one. And it's one of the things that this, since losing my leg, one thing that I've definitely learned and understood is that, opportunities, when you push and open that door, they lead onto other opportunities that lead onto other opportunities. And I now find myself doing things and contemplating doing things that I'd never in my wildest dreams have thought that I'd be able to do.
Yeah, those doors definitely open, especially if you're not being self-serving as well. I think that if you do, like you're saying there, you're naturally wanting to do to help other people, even though, now you do have a disability or even before that, when you start doing those things and people see that, like you're saying, that's when the good things come sometimes.
No, I don't know. Not always.
Well, I'm a big believer in fate. So what
I'm not.
No,
I'm not.
I kind of believe that that there's a path that's kind of set, but you choose those strands that come off that. Let's call it like a string, a branch of a tree, right? So the main branch of the tree is kind of like your lifeline, and then the little branches and stuff that come off. Sometimes you have another decent branch that comes off that takes you that direction, and then these little bits that lead you off in different directions.
I couldn't disagree more.
No?
I earn a living now talking about things that have happened to me, and I still sit down, like, you know, you put a video on during your talk, and I still sit down and go, can I swear?
No, you swear, yeah.
Yeah, I look and go, holy shit. How on earth did any of this happen? You know, and I still think about my life and think, that's bonkers. And I'm a absolute firm believer that good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people. I've seen too many examples of that to believe that there's any rhyme or reason in the universe, and shit happens. And for me, it's never been a choice. There is no other choice other than to get on with it. You know, you can't change. When I lost my leg, thinking about the bad luck and how, you know, why me and all that was as alien to... Have you ever wanted to be able to fly like Superman?
Yeah, I guess when I was little, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, imagine how amazing that would be. But you may as well get upset about not being able to fly as you are about stuff that's happened, because you can't change it. There's no way of changing it. It's, you know, so sat there moping about what might have been, you may as well mope about the fact that you can't fly, or, you know, you haven't got a lightsaber like Luke Skywalker. You know, it makes as much sense. So I think that's possibly the only difference, is that luckily I had that mindset, and realistically, you know, when I remember laying in the hospital bed more or less straight after this happened, I think I was still in intensive care, and I thought about all the most important things in my life, and if I put them in order, you know, where on that list, how far down would your bottom right leg be, you know? So actually, you know, putting things into context as well helps with that mindset. But getting back to fate, you know, and you might be right and I might be wrong, but I've seen no evidence of any kind of sense or any rhyme or reason in the universe. I can't see anything that makes sense to me.
I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, the fate that I kind of see in my head, I'm not saying that is directionally good or directionally bad. What I'm trying to say is that you have sort of like a linear path that, you know, you're kind of on, but then you go off in lots of different directions. Things happen to you, you know, like you know, you lost your leg. That happened to you. But now you're in a new direction that you kind of taken. Now, whether something has taken you that way, whether you were already on that path to go on to that, I'm going super deep here, aren't I?
Yeah.
But, you know, that's kind of my point, is like, you know, if we go down the lines of fate, right? Everyone's natural instinct when you talk about that sort of thing, that there is a path that is designated for you, and that's what you go along.
But that's what believing in fate means.
So I kind of believe that the line is set for you, but there's lots of different things you can do off that too, but it still brings you back to the line that you're supposed to be on. Does that make sense?
No.
Let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
Right. On. Let's go right back. So where did you grow up?
I was born in Dagenham in it's kind of East London. It's a London borough, but a Essex postcode, so it's kind of on the edge and nowhere. All
right, cool. And you know, growing up as a kid, you know, were you active? Were you like the outdoorsy type?
No, I actually had a really difficult childhood. My dad was a violent alcoholic, and he used to beat me mum up, and quite badly. And I was pretty much rubbish at everything that I attempted. I wasn't. We mentioned earlier about not being a natural athlete, should I say? I love football, and I was just rubbish at it. And I thought I'd be good at cross country running, and I was rubbish at that. I was just rubbish at everything. Everything I ever tried wasn't academic. So I actually, struggled quite a lot when I was a kid. And the big thing for me, and why the Royal Marines became such a big part of my life, was when my dad used to beat my mum up. She used to cry for me because I was the eldest. She used to cry for me to come and help. And what was I, about 4, 5, 6? And my mum said that I used to freeze in terror. And I sort of, a belief that I'm a coward is so deeply ingrained in me. It's so much part of who I am that, I kind of dreamt of being a brave person, and the epitome of a brave person when, for me growing up, was a Royal Marine. So that was my dream, was to be someone who was brave and to be a Royal Marine. So that's where that dream came from. It was a dream as well. I remember when I was you 13 when you take your options at school, and they have like a career fair, don't they, where they bring in all the different. But Falls in Dagenham was most people left school and went to Falls, or a lot of people did. But as well as them, you had the Army, Navy, and Air Force there, and also there was a bootneck there. And I went straight up to the bootneck and said, "Well, I want to be a Royal Marine." And he said, "Okay." He goes, "Are you the captain of the football team?" I was like, "No." He said, "The rugby team?" I said, "We haven't got a rugby team." He went, "Oh, are you in the football team then?" I was like, "No." And he went, "You're not really what we're looking for. We're looking for the captains of the sports teams." I was like, "Oh." He goes, "Sorry." And I goes, "Oh, can I have one of the brochures?" And he went, "No, I haven't really got any left." There was a big pile of them behind him. I was devastated. But the Royal Marines as a serious career choice for me then and there vanished. It had gone. I was told by someone who was a Royal Marine, whose job it was to pick people to become Royal Marines, told me that I wasn't what they were looking for. So as a serious career choice, that had gone. If he doesn't know what being a Royal Marine, what you need to be a Royal Marine, then no one knows. But I never lost the dream, never ever lost. And
what set you on that path as opposed to saying I want to join the army or the RAF? What sort of like put that ingrained into your head to go up to the guy that was a Royal Marine and say, I want to be that, as opposed to the others?
All right, my dad used to drink in the British Legion. My granddad ran the local British Legion, and it was a big part of my life growing up. And despite my dad being a violent alcoholic, I idolised him. He, without being an apologist for a wife beater, you say like my dad was a violent alcoholic and he beat my mum. That's in pantomime villain, but he wasn't. He was a far more complicated character, and he was actually, when he wasn't drinking, he was a wonderful, lovely, funny, intelligent, kind-hearted, and despite being a wife beater, he had a weird but very deeply ingrained morality. And I know that sounds bonkers, But I idolised my dad. The other thing about my dad, and again, this is another contradiction in terms, he was, when I grew up in Dagenham, there was a real hard man culture. You know, oh, he's a diamond geezer. And my dad had a fairly big reputation. Before I joined the Corps, there was a period where I left work and was working behind the bars in local pubs, clubs and that. And as part of the round of showing you round the pumps and how to change barrels and that, would be the local who's who and who to look out for. And I used to end the conversation with, I'm Johnny Spencer's son. And they'd always go, oh, sorry, I didn't know that. So when my dad used to drink over the British Legion, I used to go over, and that's where I used to see him. You know, it was the only place you could guarantee where he'd be. It was the local British Legion. But he used to sit on a table with a load of old bootnicks from the Second World War. They used to call it their table the Royal Marines mess deck, and every day, every lunchtime, like they'd all sit down and they'd all tell stories about their time in the war. Never about fighting, always like shenanigans. The Corps hasn't changed, and the lads in the Corps haven't changed, genuinely haven't. And I used to sit there and absolutely mesmerised by them. But the thing for me was, like the British Legion moves, it was nearly everyone in there had fought in the war, you know, when I was a kid. And all the other cap badges and services, they all had their little associations. But there was something different about the Royal Marines. They all sat together. None of the other cap badges done that. And they had a definite identity. So I kind of grew up with that. And then when I was 12 or 13, you had the Falklands War happened, and that was, the Corps were front and centre of everything that happened then. So it weren't, I didn't just want a career in the armed forces. It wasn't about, I didn't look on it as a good way of travelling or a good life or something like that. I wanted to be a brave person. I wanted to be a Royal Marine. I didn't want the Royal Marines wage. I didn't want the Royal Marines career prospects. I didn't want anything that the Royal Marine life gave you. I just wanted to be that person. If I explain that,
no, it's perfect. Yeah.
So that's why the army or the other armed forces ever came into it. It weren't about a career. It was about being that person, identifying myself as a Royal Marine. And that came from an absolute core belief. You know, it was fundamental to my makeup that I believed I was a coward.
So when you went and spoke to the guy at the careers convention that you went to, and he turns around to you and you're like, you had your heart set on it that you wanted to join, and he turns around, nah, you're not what we're looking for. That must have been pretty dashing, really.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but I was used to failure and disappointment. I thought I'd be a good cross-country runner. I don't know why. I used to run everywhere and do things. And in school, they had, like, for the trials for the cross-country team, they just sent everybody out on this route. And as you came back in, they gave you a number. And I think it was about 94 kids in my year. And I came 53rd. That's something that I thought I'd be good at. And, you know, and that's something that I tried at, and I came 53rd. Football. I love football. I played football all of my life. And I played football for a Sunday league team as centre forward for 4 seasons. I played every Sunday. You know, I've missed a handful of games as centre forward. I scored 2 goals in 4 seasons. I've been absolutely crap at everything I've ever tried. And so actually being told, I think I'd have been more surprised if he'd have said, you're exactly what we want. They weren't only then. I left school and got a YTS, Youth Training Scheme, for those that can remember them. And it was in a job I hated. I worked in a lab, and like just as a general dog's body with no qualifications whatsoever. And I absolutely hated it. And I hated being that person who worked there. And I went to the careers office at 18, and I didn't get past the interview stage. It was Chief Petty Officer Smith in the Holborn office in London. And he said, "You're really not what we're looking for." And it was only like there was another weird coincidence, very much like finding a puppy in Afghanistan. Me and a friend of mine, a lad I went to school with, we ended up on a mountain called Adz, which is it's widely regarded as the most picturesque mountain in Snowdonia, in Wales. Actually, it's beautiful. And we ended up, a long story, but long and short of it was, we ended up stuck on the top of it at night, and we had we watched the sunrise from the top of Adz. And that moment changed my life as significantly as losing my leg, I believe. And I remember walking back to work, and when, like, a couple of days later, walking down to the station to go to work, and I looked over my left shoulder, and I could see the sun rising over some waste ground, and it was beautiful. And I remember thinking, I've walked past that every day for like 5 years, and that's the first time I noticed it, and it got me thinking. And I got on the train, and when you commute in London, you get on the same seat on the same train, and so does everybody else. So you sit opposite the same people, and I sat opposite these people for nearly 5 years. And I thought, this is mad. And I said hello. I said morning to this person. I went, "Oh, morning." And it was almost like a set of dominoes that were just waiting to fall, because then everybody started saying hello. And then when I got off my station, which was Euston Square, where I worked, I was rushing, and I've just suddenly caught myself and thought, I'm rushing. I'm in a mad rush here. And then I realised that I've been rushing for 5 years. I've been working there. And I looked round, and everybody else was rushing. And that all came about. That thought train came about through watching the sunrise on top of that mountain. So it was up until then by far the most beautiful and an amazing thing I'd ever seen. And within that day, I made the decision. I very soon gave me noticing at work, and thought, well, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And I was waiting for another job to come along, and I thought, I'm going to blink, and I've done this job for 10 years, and then I'm stuck doing it. So I left, and I thought, I started working behind the bars in Dagenham. And I thought, I'll give myself 3 months to get as fit as I possibly can and give it one last go. And I went to the careers office, and got straight through the interview, got put on a potential recruits course. And that was then the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. And got to the end of it, and they used to call out your names. And so the first set of names they called out was like, never darken our door again. Then the next ones were come back in 6 months. And then it was come back in 3 months. And then they called my name out as those that had passed. And I was absolutely gobsmacked that I'd passed it. But I passed it by every one, like the old USMC test. Every one of them, I just scraped in. So they called out a few names for people to go back in and see the call Sergeant Major. And we went through, he went through all my scores on everything, and I'd scraped in on everything. And looking back on it, now you know how these things run. On the last day, when they take you down on the bottom field and just thrash you until people give up, he followed me everywhere. So I now know they were looking at the people who were borderline, and he thought, right, I'll come and have a look at him. And I can remember him like walking around with me, and I just didn't give in. And I've always, I now know that I've always been good at that, not giving in. And so he went through my scores and he says, look, you know, you're going to have to improve on your press ups and everything like that. And he goes, this stuck with me all the way through training. He says, right, you can go. And I turned and walked out. And before I got to the door, he went, Spencer. And I turned round and I went, yes, sir. And he went, you're going to be he swore, you're going to be a fucking good bootneck. And I went, oh, thank you. And I walked out there, my head massive. And I don't know if he'd done that because he genuinely saw something in me, or whether, and what I probably suspect, he wanted to give me a little bit of a boost. But that stuck with me through training. And once I got in training, I absolutely flourished. I sort of found something that I was good at, finally. After a whole childhood of finding something that I might not be, or not, I would have settled for not crap at, and that was not giving in, just keeping going.
Do you not think the hardships that you suffered at, you know, up to that point was, you know, you kind of gained that mentality, that not giving up, because, you know, you have brothers and sisters?
I've got a sister, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you're talking about your father and what he did to your mum. If you hadn't have done certain things, and I guess you would have protected her as well, in a sort of a subconscious manner as well, and going through those trials and tribulations, it just sounds like you've kind of not acquired, you've just gained that mentality as you've gone through those different things. Being told not to do something and then actually going, do you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to go and do it.
The night I left for my potential recruits course, my uncle and aunt came round to see us at my mum's house. My mum and dad split up when I was 7. And they come to see my mum. And obviously I was like full of it, you know. Next day I had a rail warrant to go to Lympstone Commando. Even the name Lympstone Commando on the train ticket was like amazing to me. And my uncle said, he went, you'll not pass. He goes, you won't be able to stick the discipline. You'll not pass. They're not interested in you. You're too old. Anyway, how old was I? 21. Because you're too old. They ain't going to be interested in you. And that drove me in training, and that wanting to prove him wrong kept me going. Apart from that, I never had that confidence in myself, really, to want to prove people wrong, because as well as believing that I was a coward, believing that I was crap at everything was also deeply ingrained within me. I get asked to speak about resilience. It's massive in the corporate world, you know, and and it's something that I thought about a lot, because I talk in schools about failure, and it's one of the things I think that, you know, builds resilience is picking yourself up and going again, is constantly failing. And that's you know, when I go in schools, that's what I talk about a lot. You know, in schools, all they talk about is success. You're going to be a great success. To get on in life, you need to do this, and to be a success in life. And I thought, you know, kids nowadays, they need to be taught need to learn how to fail, because especially social media, it's a different world out there, because all they see of each other is what they post on social media, and it's all, look at my successful life, look at my successful family car, look at my successful family holiday. And if you're not got that, and which no one has that perfect life that's portrayed on social media, it's really, really difficult for kids to kind of come to grips with that. So when they do fail, they feel that they're failing, you know, and there's no upside to that. Where the thing that the biggest gift I've got, apart from not giving in, what goes hand in hand with that is I'm a dreamer. I've always dreamt. Like when I was told at 13, you're not what we're looking for, I never lost that dream of being a Royal Marine. That's really important. I never lost the dream. It was still my dream. I didn't pack it up and put it away. The actual practicality of being a Royal Marine as a serious career choice had gone. You know, that wasn't for me. I was told that wasn't for me, but I never lost the dream. So it's, for me, resilience is built through constantly failing and picking yourself up. When things go wrong for me now, like with the last row, I was ready to go on the 18th of January 2018. The weather was looking good, everything was going right. 3 days before, on the 15th, my mum died, like quite unexpectedly, and I had to fly back to the UK and postponed everything. But I picked myself up and went again, and then I went out in November that year, and I sat looking out at sea for a whole month waiting for a weather window that allowed me to row out into the Atlantic, and it didn't come, and I had to postpone it again. And then I finally got away in January last year, and 5 days into it, the whole of my navigation system, every electrical component on the boat just completely failed. And at that point, when it happened, I thought that was the whole row. Saying I've worked 2.5 years constantly for, I thought it'd all gone. But I was used to it. I'm used to things going tits up. And when you get used to it, you kind of just pick yourself up and go, okay, let's crack on. As it turned out, it wasn't the end of the road, but at that point I didn't know then. Guinness, well, the Ocean Rowing Society, all ocean rowing records are, if you're solo, it's solo and unsupported, not solo, unsupported and non-stop. No ocean rowing record is non-stop, so you can stop for essential repairs, but obviously the clock is still ticking. But at the point, I didn't know that. So when everything went wrong, and when my mum died, and when I didn't get a weather window, and that's just talking about one specific thing, that's just that row. Things go wrong, and it does seem that they go spectacularly wrong for me. I don't know why that is, but things always go wrong, and its resilience is built through knowing that things go wrong and just picking yourself up and going again. So that, I don't know about any mental steel or anything like that was built into me as a kid. I think it's more of a, nothing more than just getting used to things going badly. And when they do go bad, you just go, oh, well, that's kind of normal for me, and pick yourself up and keep going.
Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, I don't think mentally you really know, you kind of understand what's going on with it, because I think you've got that subconscious from what you're talking about there, and that resilience and that will to sort of like carry on. I think it's just ingrained in you. You've just not recognized it, and you still got it now. Like, you know, through being in the Corps. One of the things that you were saying there about things going wrong, but you just kind of suck it up, and you get on with it. The classic cliche: improvise, adapt, overcome.
Do you know one of the biggest lessons I learned in training for me is, I remember, you remember Running Man? I don't know what
Yeah.
they call it. It's my boys in training now, and they changed all the exercise names.
Yeah,
It was kind of like a survival X and a
yeah. No, I do
navigation
remember
X.
it. Yeah.
And I remember like going out and doing a Navex and coming back in and all sitting around the fire shivering, and the troop officer would come in and he'd say, right, section commanders on me. And I remember thinking then, quite matter-of-factly, not a dramatic, oh no, I can't do this. It was, if this is another Navex, I definitely can't do this. I have hit my absolute limit of what I'm capable of doing. And it was another Navex, and we went off and done it. And I remember coming back in and being surprised that I'd done it, thinking, wow, I didn't think I'd do that. But I definitely can't do the next one. And then it was section commanders on me, and I think, really, right, well, I definitely can't do this. After 3 or 4 times that happening, and being pleasantly surprised that I had actually completed it, I realised then I kind of had to kind of and sort of get to grips with the idea I probably don't know what I am capable of. And that's the biggest lesson I learned in training is I don't know where my limit is. Okay, I might think it's there, but I'm wrong. It isn't. And there's a quote that I was listening to Desert Island Discs, and is it Steve Backshaw was on there? The guy who always works with Aldo Kane.
Oh, right, okay.
Steve Backshaw, is it? I think it is. It was him on Desert Island Discs, and he quoted someone. I can't remember who the quote is from, but it's when you are absolutely at the end of everything and you've given absolutely everything, you're probably only about halfway through. You've still got that again to give. And that's so true. And training gave me that. And training gave me the confidence and the understanding that I don't know what I'm capable of. And what we're all capable of, you know. And I keep saying it about me not being a natural athlete. But that's the biggest lesson that training gave me, really.
I think that what you don't realise, especially if you don't come from a background where, you know, you're like, let's say, like a high level sportsman, you know, the average middle class, you know, kid that comes up, he, you know, joins recruit training, and I've used the analogy before of it's like a tick list. The hardest thing you've ever done is a 4-mile run at a 10-minute mile pace. Boom, done that. So the next time you go and do something like that, you'll always look back and go, do you know what? That was actually quite hard, but it wasn't as hard as this. And then it's another tick in the box. And then you're talking about those Navexes, those navigational exercises. You know, you go, oh, I didn't think I would be able to do that. Right, it's a tick in the box. I did 5 back to back. Brilliant. So the next one, you're like, that. Well, I just did 5 back to back. I've had a couple of weeks off now. I've got a couple to do. Yeah, it's not going to be as hard as that. Boom, it's tick in the box. So each time you do something that's really, really hard, in the back of your mind, and this is the way I use it, it's a little tick list. So whenever you come to do something, you know it's going to be absolutely belted and you're going to be on the bones of your ass. You go, well, actually, I've done something similar to that, and you can compare it. Do you ever think like that?
No, it's It's very different to that, and I'll give you an example. Okay. Next thing that I'm planning solo challenge, I'm calling it the Triathlon of Great Britain. So I've tried to combine the 3 biggest challenges in Britain in one thing into a triathlon. So swim the Channel, get down to Land's End as quickly as possible, cycle Land's End to John O'Groats, but going via Snowdon and Scarfell Pike, and then a marathon over Ben Nevis and finishing at the Commando Memorial. And I want to do it in 10 days. So that's basically swimming the Channel, cycling Land's End to John O'Groats, and the 3 peaks all in one big challenge. Excuse me, I'm not really a swimmer. I can swim. I'm not really a swimmer. I know that I can't cuff this. I'm going to have to train. but I have no doubt that I can swim the channel. That I might get halfway across and pull a muscle and have to drop out, or they might get bad weather, or the currents might send me, something might go wrong. So I'm not stupid and believe that I can do it on this day, but I know that I can swim the channel. I know it's within my capabilities. I've never swam further than a couple of lengths, than anyone else. I'm not a big swimmer, but I know I can do it. But it goes beyond that. I don't know if you saw in the news last year, an American woman swam, it was either 4 or 5 times. That's the record now. She swam the channel non-stop 4 times or 5 times. And I looked at that and thought, wow, no one swam the Irish Sea. A bloke done it in a wetsuit, but that's not recognised by the Ocean Swimming Society, or the Society of Ocean Swimmers, or whatever it is. So therefore it's not counted as a record. To count as a record, you have to do it in Speedos and a swimming cap. There's all sorts of regulations. And that's in the back of my mind. Swimming, something no human has ever done. I'm not a particularly good swimmer. But I think it's possible. That's stupidly optimistic, isn't it? Thinking that way. But that understanding that I don't know what I'm capable of. I don't know where my limit is. No one knows where the limit is. You don't know where your limit is. People who are listening to this, you don't know where your limit is. That's, for me, that is a fundamental belief. It's the cornerstones of everything that I believe now. And that came through training. So it's not looking at something and going, right, I've done this, I could go one better. This is off the Richter scale, stupid. Thinking that I can swim across the Irish Sea. But that's on my radar now. I've not even swam the channel. If I'd have swam the channel and thought, oh wow, imagine if, then there's some kind of logic to that kind of thinking. This is off the Richter scale stupid to believe that it's possible, but I do. And I'm not even, I'm sat with Baz Gray at the moment, and we want to keep this one under wraps, but there's a massive record that no one's ever done. I don't want to say too much about it, but a lot of it involves walking to and from the poles. And I think I can do it. I'm going to have to go out with Baz and be proven that I can't do it. I've only got one leg, so there are things that I can't do. But because of that fundamental belief that I got in training, that confidence that the Royal Marines training gave me in understanding that I don't know where those lines are, I'm going to have to go up, be shown, this is where the line is, for walking anywhere, because it's obviously, I'm never going to be like 400 metre hurdles champion with one leg. There are obvious limitations to that, but you take that away, that belief is still in me, and that came from training.
Where did you obviously passing out of training was obviously going to be a massive accomplishment for you. How did that feel when you got to that end goal, and that was kind of like, that must have been your pinnacle focal point, just to get that green beret and pass out of those gates.
Well, same as most people who join up, I looked around the people with me in my troop, 635 troop we were, and there was lads who boxed for Wales, county runners, and all these great sportsmen. And obviously I've been crap at everything I'd ever attempted. And I assumed, you look at the statistics, I assumed that that I wasn't going to make it through, but the dream of getting to the end, that hadn't gone anywhere. The dream was still there. So it was that dream that carried me through, and I kind of was just glad every Friday that I was still there. So towards the end of training, when I kind of flourished, really came out of myself, and then started seeing the green beret, getting a green beret as actually this is going to happen. Yeah, it's, you know, same as anyone. You walk out of Limpston bomb-proof, bulletproof, and then you go to a unit, and then you're straight back down to the bottom again. You have to do that process all over again. That really stayed with me. When I passed out, the Corps hadn't really done anything since the Falklands. There was Haven in 91, which I just missed. I passed out in 92. And nothing, you know, everyone really talked about, and everything was based around the Falklands. And there was there'd be a few lads who might have had a contact, the odd contact in Ireland. And they were spoken of with reverence, you know, and then the guys that were in the Falklands. And it was only really, I was lucky enough to be a section commander in Charlie Company, going into Iraq, the initial invasion, and leading a section off the helicopter going into the Alfour Peninsula. That, you know, there was always that nagging doubt that, all right, I was now a Royal Marine, but I still might be a coward. So it was only actually going through that process of going to war that I finally put that to bed. The feeling's still there, it's still there with me, but I can look that feeling in the face, metaphorically speaking, obviously, and show it the hard evidence that I'm not a coward, and that's put it to bed for me. But it was only really, and when was that? 2003. So I'd been in the Corps 11 years. So even I thought that being a Royal Marine, being that brave person, I thought that would be the cure for those bad feelings, you know. But it wasn't, because you have to prove yourself again. You go to the bottom of the pile. And the worst thing about being a Marine, if you've suffered from low self-esteem and you think that that's gonna, you know, help you, cure you, you can look that low self-esteem in the mirror and go, I'm a Royal Marines Commando. You can, to a certain degree, but the you know, the flip side to that, or the downside to that, is you're now associated with and surrounded by absolute quality people. So if I've got this thing that you know you've made it if you can say I'm an average bootneck. If you can say I am an average bootneck, that's all anyone can ever dream of being. And it was only after Iraq, really, that I put that to bed. And I could kind of get on with the rest of my life, I think, maybe.
Do you think there was something during the invasion of Iraq? You know, I mean, obviously it would have been the first time maybe that you've been in contacts and stuff during.
Yeah, absolutely was. There was an sorry.
Yeah, go on.
I've assumed I know what you're going to ask.
No, go on, go for it.
Right. There is an absolute moment I can remember. We took the second building in the thing called the manifold and metering station in Alfour. It's where basically all the oil in southern Iraq comes to one point and then gets pumped out to sea. And we captured it. When we captured that, then everybody rolled across their start lines. So it was like one of the most important infrastructure points to take. There was a corner of a building, and we was trying to get into the building, my section, and there was like me entry pair, lad called Bucky O'Hare and Snaggle, Tony Whitehead. I said to him, right, go, and Snaggle said, I can't, they're shooting at me. Apparently, someone heard me shout, well, fucking shoot him back, dickhead. But that don't sound like something I would have said, and I've got no memory of saying it. And my 2IC was a lad called Titch Cormac. He then went on to a massive career in the SBS. He was a hoofing bloke, and it sounds like the sort of thing that he would have said. He's a lot cleverer and a lot more witty than me, and but the whole of the company HQ were behind this bung line, and they heard me say it apparently. But it was at that point I realised that he was getting shot at from this corner, and there was no way round it. We had to go round, and I could not, and I knew I couldn't command anyone to do something like that. I had to lead my section round, and we peeled round, and I led us round. And when I went round that corner, I genuinely believed that I was going to get shot and I'd be coming back the other way. But there was nothing I could do. I was here. No one else was here. I had to lead my section. No one else was going to lead them. So it was a matter of fact decision. And I went round. Actually, I'm not entirely sure we were in contact. I think a couple of lads were flapping a little bit, but that's just in hindsight. At that moment, and that's the important thing, I know this. And to kind of put this into context, if there was any chink in that armour, my low self-esteem would wheedle its way in there. And it hasn't. And this statement is bomb-proof. I genuinely believed that there was a very high chance I was going to get shot. And I confronted that, made the decision, and led my section round. So that's the point for me personally that put that to bed. As I say, in hindsight, I'm pretty certain we weren't. And a couple of lads were flapping a little bit and thought they were, but that's not the point. It's what I believed at that point, at that moment, which is the important part of that. Since then, I've done 3 tours of Afghan, and obviously, being in contact, the novelty of that somewhere's away.
Yeah, it definitely does, doesn't it? Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because you went from Iraq. Obviously, you had quite a few scenarios there, like many of us did during those Afghan and that early Afghan and Iraq time. It was kind of like the Wild West around the Middle East around that point, yeah. Wasn't it? Just talk a little bit about, you went from being in the Marines and then you went and did something else, didn't you? Something a little bit different. Frank is a true inspiration as a human being, overcoming adversity mentally and physically. Please tune in next week for the second part of the podcast. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share and subscribe on your podcast provider, and also follow the Grumpy Surfer on Instagram. Thanks for listening.